Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to, well, plunge right into the source material. Our job is to pull out those key nuggets of knowledge, the really important insights, basically giving you a shortcut to being properly informed. And today, we are tackling a huge one, really complex, incredibly important, the long geopolitical struggle between Iran and Israel. Get ready for, I think, some surprising facts and hopefully a very clear overview as we navigate this.
It's absolutely critical. And what's really key here is understanding this isn't just about the Middle East here. It has global implications. Its roots are so deep. You've got profound ideological opposition, intense regional power competition. It makes it, well, a central and really persistent flashpoint in modern geopolitics.
Yeah, that really hits home, doesn't it? Those deep historical fault lines. And our goal here in this deep dive is to try and make sense of a situation that honestly can feel pretty overwhelming. We want to show you how events that seem separate are actually, intertwined. It's like a strategic chess match, really.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right at the core, the absolute heart of this conflict.
Okay. So at its heart, you really have this undeniable ideological hostility. Ever since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, Iran's Islamic Republic has openly opposed Israel. They actually call for its elimination. And this isn't just talk, it's fundamental, stemming from their revolution's anti-imperialist thinking. They see Israel as, well, basically an extension of Western power, not really an indigenous state. And then on the flip side, you have Israel's security doctrine. That's their, foundational strategy, deterrence, preemptive action. And Israel sees Iran as its most dangerous adversary, number one threat, mainly because of Iran's nuclear ambitions, and of course its clear support for anti-Israel militant groups.
It's just incredible to think about that level of opposition now, especially when you remember before 1979, things were totally different. Was that shift really that sudden, just bang, overnight hostility, or did it kind of dissolve over time?
No, it was a complete and really dramatic reversal, a total flip. Before 79, under the Shah, Iran and Israel actually had diplomatic links, even military ties. But right after the 79 revolution, boom, everything changed. Iran becomes an Islamic republic, cuts all ties, adopts that openly hostile stance we just talked about. There were no, lingering connections. The break was sharp, ideological, final.
Wow. Okay, so with that new hostility cemented, how did it actually, manifest itself? When did we start seeing these proxy conflicts emerge, and how did they become such a big part of this whole rivalry?
That started pretty quickly, actually. Starting in the 1980s and right through the 2000s, Iran began actively supporting groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's the powerful armed Shia group, and also Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, Sunni Islamist groups. Now, what these groups share is that common goal, opposing Israel's existence. And they've repeatedly fought military conflicts with Israel, basically acting as Iran's arm in the region. It's part of their strategy.
Right, and a really clear, maybe stark example of that was the 2006 Israel-Hezbollah war. That was, 34 days in southern Lebanon. And Iran was directly funding and arming Hezbollah.
That's exactly right. And that kind of direct support, well, it really changed the game for proxy warfare in the region. It set a new precedent. Then if you fast forward a bit to the 2010s, the Syrian civil war, that became another massive arena for this conflict. Iran used the chaos of the war to build up significant military infrastructure inside Syria, which naturally Israel saw as a major threat right on its northern border, like Iran setting up a forward base. So as a result, Israel has carried out, hundreds of airstrikes in Syria. The goal is to stop Iran from digging in militarily there. And at the same time, tensions were really ratcheting up over Iran's nuclear program. Iran's been enriching uranium, to 60% purity. That kind of level rings major alarm bells, makes people think they're getting dangerously close to maybe developing nuclear weapons. And for Israel, that's simply an existential threat.
Okay, and speaking of these regional shifts, what about the Abraham Accords? That felt like a big deal. How did they fit into this picture? How did Iran react?
Right, the Abraham Accords, 2020, 2021, that's when Israel normalized relations with several Arab states, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco. Well, Iran strongly opposed those moves, vehemently. They didn't see them as peace deals. They saw them as a calculated move by Israel and Sunni Arab states to basically isolate Tehran, maybe even encircle them. It was seen as shifting the regional power balance against Iran. It just shows how everything gets viewed through the lens of this rivalry.
It really does, which brings us almost right up to the present. Those very recent developments, especially after October 2023. What did we see happening then? How did that change things, raise the stakes even higher.
Yeah, post-October 7th, 2023. After the Hamas attack on Israel and the war in Gaza that followed, things escalated significantly. You saw Iran-backed groups across the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, they all stepped up attacks
Right.
on both Israeli and U.S. interests. Now, Israel accused Iran of, well, orchestrating or at least funding a lot of these attacks.
Right.
But Iran itself denied direct involvement. They maintained that sort of plausible deniability, for these proxy actions.
And that seems to lead right into something really new, those unprecedented direct confrontations. That feels like a critical turning point, blurring the lines between proxies and Iran itself attacking.
Absolutely. A direct strike of that scale, it really signaled a new, much riskier phase in this whole conflict.
Yeah.
In April 2024, for the very first time ever, Iran launched a direct missile and drone attack on Israel, an open, overt attack. Very different from the proxy stuff we'd seen before. Israel did retaliate, but it was a limited strike on some Iranian military sites, so thankfully both sides seemed to pull back from the brink of full-scale war. But the tensions, still incredibly high. It showed a new, more direct phase as possible. It's quite sobering, actually, to see how quickly those thresholds for direct fighting are being tested now.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a journey through the timeline. It really paints a picture of how deep-rooted this is, but also how it keeps evolving, shifting battlegrounds. So taking all that history, what does it mean for today? What are the really big issues we need to watch right now, the things shaping this rivalry as we speak?
Okay, if we try to connect all that to the present day, I'd say there are four major issues really dominating the situation. First, obviously, Iran's nuclear program. That hasn't gone away. Iran keeps enriching uranium, like we said, up to that worrying 60% level. And Israel, its allies, they fear Iran is just too close to being able to build nuclear weapons, crossing red lines that could, trigger some kind of preemptive action. Second, proxy warfare. It's still absolutely central to how Iran operates in the region. They fund and arm groups in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Gaza. It lets them project power, threaten Israel, often without direct Iranian fingerprints. And in response, Israel is constantly striking Iran-linked targets across the region, trying to degrade those capabilities. Third, something maybe less visible but still critical, cyber warfare.
Yeah.
Both countries are engaged in pretty sophisticated cyber attacks, targeting critical infrastructure, power grids, financial systems, even military networks. It adds this sort of silent, constant layer to the conflict. And finally, fourth, these ongoing regional realignments. You've got Israel strengthening ties with Arab states, like through the Abraham Accords, trying to build a sort of anti-Iran front. Meanwhile, Iran is deepening its own alliances with its axis of resistance, Hezbollah, the Houthis, but also looking further afield, building ties with Russia and China in some areas, challenging that U.S.-led order.
Yeah, you can really see how these dynamics, while focused in the Middle East, just ripple outwards. They absolutely affect global stability. This isn't just, like you said, a regional spat. It has major international consequences.
Absolutely. The potential for a broader regional war is always there, especially if things really blow up in Lebanon or Syria or maybe the Persian Gulf. And the big powers, particularly the U.S., are heavily involved. They're trying to contain Iran, defend Israel, but crucially, also trying to prevent that full-scale regional war. A war like that could wreck energy markets, global security. It's a huge concern. And it's just vital to remember the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and this Iran-Israel tension, they're deeply tangled up together. They feed off each other, fueling wider instability across the whole region. And maybe this raises an important question for you listening right now. How do you balance those immediate sort of tactical moves in a proxy war against the long-term risks, the risk of unintended escalation that could pull in major world powers? So maybe something to reflect on is this. Consider how those really deep ideological roots, combined with the constantly shifting proxy dynamics, make this specific conflict one of the most stubborn, most challenging flashpoints we have in geopolitics today. And the ripple effects, they go far, far beyond the Middle East itself. It really forces us to ask, can there even be a path to de-escalation when such fundamental existential beliefs seem to be at stake on both sides?
Absolutely. And we really encourage you to keep exploring that. Think about how these incredibly complex connections shape not just the Middle East, but global stability alliances really for years, maybe decades to come.